Greetings. I'm Darby Orcutt, the Assistant Head for Collections and Research Strategy at NC State University Libraries. For many years, I have been advocating, negotiating, and working within the scholarly publishing and research library communities for clear and defined access to content of all kinds for computational research purposes. I believe that supporting this sort of work is vital, not just for data scientists, but for all the disciplines, and for the health and future viability of all research and scholarship, and the infrastructures of their dissemination. Thank you for joining me today. Sometime the better part of a decade ago, the robots replaced us. That may sound like the tagline for a science fiction movie, but it's actually the case when we're talking about reading. The 2016 Imperva Encapsula bot traffic report found that 52% of internet traffic came from bots, and that was actually the lowest percentage in recent years. Of course, there's a lot of reading that happens offline too, but even there, it's impossible to crunch the numbers in such a way that human readership isn't easily surpassed. Single text analysis projects by humanities scholars routinely outread all scholars worldwide in the discipline, if not all of their students as well. And that's in the humanities disciplines, in which computational research is generally undertaken on far smaller corpora of text than in most scientific disciplines. There are the periodic headlines, of course, that reading is in decline, but such narratives are true only from a narrowly anthropocentric perspective. If we include computer rather than just human readers, there is far more reading happening in today's world than ever before, and that trend will likely never reverse. Yet computer reading seems so foreign to us, so very alien. Computers are indiscriminate readers, for example, just as content to read a phone book as Shakespeare, and the sorts of insights they glean from text can seem at first strangely esoteric, with word counts or heat maps or algorithms that clearly present facts, but less clearly facilitate understanding. It is our misunderstanding and our lack of consideration of our computer readers that has led to the historic prejudice and current state of discrimination against them by publishers, by librarians, and by the scholarly publishing community generally. Our procedures, platforms, and licenses for electronic resources specifically exclude computer readers and the ways that they discover, access, and read texts. Just as our human readers with certain disabilities often require certain formats or interfaces in order to effectively use content, so too do our computer readers have special needs. For example, like humans with sight impairment, mere images of text do not serve them well in converting those images into formats that they can readily comprehend. And unlike humans, computers' native pace of reading would trigger by design throttling or even outright loss of access on most of our platforms. You may or may not be aware of the inspiration for this odd title. It's a parody of an extremely popular and now decades-old internet meme, which originated as a screenshot from the 1992 English language home release of the video game Zero Wing. Following a successful attack on the player's forces, the villain proudly proclaims, "All your base are belong to us." It is one of a number of comically poor translations within the game from the Japanese original, and it has lived a long life. Those of us who can, think back to the internet of the early 1990s. This meme was passed along via message boards years before Google existed, and prior to the rise of graphical websites. Some claim it is the first internet meme. Regardless, it is one of the earliest and most long-lived. It is still relevant and ripe for parody today. It's even shown up multiple times in the discourse of political figures. I chose it here not just because it's fun, but because it embodies two significant aspects of the topic at hand. Number one, it is an example of understanding that is lost in translation. And two, it represents a key moment of change in how we use our technology to understand and communicate our world, and how profoundly our partnership with that technology changes our world. First of all, let's recognize that this meme wasn't funny at all in the original Japanese. It was only when translating to a new context and culture. Librarianship and scholarly publishing have centuries of experience in serving human readers, but practically none in serving computer readers. We are now in need of translating our own services into new contexts and culture. Only a few years ago, I would routinely be told by directors of large research libraries that supporting computational research was outside the scope of what an academic library should do. I hope the tide is finally turning on that sentiment. Only a couple of years ago, I argued on a panel against an eminent university press director who spoke against computer readers. The books he publishes, he insisted, are meant to be read cover to cover as full-length monographic arguments, not to be, as he saw it, mined for pieces of content or reduced to snippets. While I'm sympathetic and supportive of the intellectual value of sustained reading, I find his assumptions about computer readers quite troubling. For one, he seems to view computer reading as somehow inherently misreading scholarly texts. This is only true, first of all, if one myopically presumes that the only function of published scholarship is to communicate within a singular discipline, and that computational research is not methodologically acceptable within the discipline. Of course, both of these presumptions are absurd. If trying to force readers to only take in a full argument is so important, why not do away with indexes for scholarly monographs? Why not sell print copies only to those who agree not to cite books that they have not read cover to cover, or to those who possess advanced degrees in the field, so we might be assured that they will understand them correctly, whatever that means. While we're at it, let's go ahead and cease our support for disciplines like history, where primary source documents clearly originally written for other purposes are constantly and intentionally misread by scholars mining them for historical content. The techniques of understanding made so much more feasible by computer reading are still largely yet to be developed. We really ought to be more excited about the methodological possibilities they open up for all fields, rather than seeking to put the genie of computational research back in its bottle. All disciplines will at least need to respond to the computational turn, regardless as to whether it represents for them progress or simply change. But of course, that means that we need to give much more robust access to our computer-assisted researchers. You'll notice I said researchers there, not computers. That's because at least as of the early 21st century, computer readers are human readers, at least extensions of human readers. What is truly happening is not that the robots are replacing us, but that they are supplementing and serving us. We humans are increasingly outsourcing our intellectual work, our technologies allowing us to do so more and more rapidly than we ever have before. Simple pen and paper extend our capacity for visualization or memory, but how much more so do modern computers? Even simply the tiny ones that we carry around with us. Discovery has become so significant in recent years, not just because of the flood of information available to us, but because we have outsourced most of our sifting through it all to our computational assistants. Those computer readers that don't mind reading phone books, or they can fly through a human lifetime's worth of reading in what seems like no time at all, or they can make connections across a corpus so large that a human never could. These computer readers are already much more efficient than we at so many menial, boring, or overwhelmingly large tasks, and will inevitably harness their strengths to put more of our current intellectual works, as well as new sorts of intellectual work, into their purview, freeing our own minds for the sorts of activities for which humans are yet better, or perhaps uniquely equipped to perform. Content that is not discoverable and readable by computers will become largely invisible and irrelevant. Yes, I'm aware that that statement upsets a lot of librarians, and no, I am not suggesting that print or artifactual collections are without value. I am saying that exponentially increasing value is being derived from connections among texts. As the approaches of human readers and computer readers merge and complement one another all the more, human readers will have more interest in reading and interpreting corpora of text upon which computational research is also making its own observations and judgments. Let me add, too, that open access, while wonderful, may not mean the same thing for computer as human readers. It requires at least a little special attention to file formats, indexing, and download capacity to make it truly open and accessible. Finally, let me drop some very practical advice for rights holders, especially for those struggling with the decisions of whether or how to support computational research. First of all, get over thinking that your content is special. Uniqueness and quality are great features, but accessibility and computational connection will win. Don't fret the security of your content. A good reason to partner with libraries in providing researchers with computational access is that libraries are already your partners in serving human readers, as well as have a vested interest in sustaining the content pipeline. And you may find that most universities adhere to at least as high of a standard of cybersecurity than your own publishing program. Don't be embarrassed by your back end. We all have metadata that's imperfect, created following practices that have changed over time, or even multiple data sets behind the scenes that appear cohesive only through the front-end interface. Making it all available for computer readers now is far more important than perfection ever will be. Lastly, be yourself. Continue producing your content for your human readers, and just make sure that your computationally assisted readers have the basic access they need, which may be as simple as an API. Don't try to guess what computational researchers will want to do. Don't try to become a provider of tools, and certainly don't try to control them. Computational researchers will increase the reach and value of your content just by being allowed to easily read and produce research upon it. For all publishers, computational research access will be increasingly necessary as a foundation for maintaining value to human readers, and distinctions among human readers, computationally supported readers, and outright computer or artificial intelligence readers will be difficult, if not often impossible, to make. Ending discrimination against computer readers and making content accessible to them does not have to be hard, but not doing so will be hard on the publishers who don't get on board. Thank you.